Hello, everyone. Happy Easter, and welcome to the Iron Canon Podcast, your home on the Star Wars Underworld Podcast Network for in-depth discussion on the lore, the High Republic, and the whole canon of the galaxy far, far away. My name is Matthew, and I'm coming to you, as always, from the Underworld North Studio in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. And I'm joined across the continent by your friend and mine, Mr. Joel Davis. Joel, happy Easter. How's it going? How are you doing this week?
He has risen as a Force ghost. Praise the Force and the Morse gods.
All that.
Yes. And toss the Emperor down a shaft. But I'm doing good. Doing good. Didn't do much for Easter. I did have some candy, but that's about it.
There we go. Got some chocolate up in there. Yeah, it's as mentioned, it is Easter, and so this week we are talking all about Force Ghosts. What are they? When have they come out in canon? How are they serving the stories at hand? So yeah, let's grab some chocolate Lepi and dig right in. They should make that. They should totally make some chocolate Lepi. I will say it is April 1st. I know it's April 1st. We had a bit planned, but it just didn't work out. So the bit is that there's no bit. There's no bit. It's just all just a straight up normal episode on April Fool's Day. But take our word for it, please. Please believe this thing we're saying on the internet.
Yes.
There we go. Let's do the plugs off the top. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Threads at Ion Canon Pod, EYEONCANONPOD. Also, get all your podcast needs here on Spotify and Apple Podcasts as well. Every Monday night when the episode is done, when we're done chatting away, I throw the episode up on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. If audio is more your speed, also of course on the Underworld Facebook, Underworld YouTube, here on Underworld YouTube, Underworld Twitch, Iron Canon Twitch, Iron Canon Twitter, and Underworld Twitter, where we spread we sow our oats. We spread the podcast love around. There we go. Spread the good news of the Iron Canon podcast, etc. Also here on the Star Wars Underworld YouTube channel, which you're watching here on YouTube, we got YouTube memberships, and we got super chats. We got all the comments in the comment section. Hopefully we got a comment right now. Daniel saying, "Hey guys," on Twitter. There we go. Comments on Twitter. We got that too. We got Twitter bots, probably. Hopefully not too many, but
Well, we know you're real, Daniel. We believe you.
We know some people are real. There we go. Some real humans are watching. Maybe some real Lepi. No, Lepi aren't real. Sorry, Kevin Scott. But they're real in Kevin Scott's heart. I'll say that. So, anyways, yeah, super chats and YouTube memberships. Please do support the channel. Also, the Star Wars Underworld Discord server. If you want to come in and chat and hang out, we're there. Again, my guarantee. So, link in the description below. Click on that, and join us. This is a link where there is a description on YouTube and Facebook, I believe. Maybe Twitch. I'm not quite sure. So yeah, go for that. Guarantee you tag Joel in the question, he'll answer. This is the last time I'll say it. Ask Ben when his birthday is. Just saying. Also, speaking of the Discord server, what's going on in the Discord? How's that going?
Well, last week we watched some Young Jedi Adventures, and we discovered that an actor from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and Star Trek Discovery are both in the show as voices. So that was fun.
Shield.
Shoot, I don't know the actor's name, but he played the dad in season 2.
Oh, okay, yeah. Okay.
He's also the guy who plays the main character in the '80s Dune movie.
Interesting. Okay.
He's a big character actor. He's in everything.
How I Met Your Mother. He's the captain in How I Met Your Mother, I think.
Maybe, but that guy, and I told you who the Star Trek person was.
Bro.
Yeah, so
engineer.
that was fun. Nothing this week. No meetings this week. Haven't decided what we're gonna do next week, but yeah, it was fun watching some Young Jedi Adventures. We're on episode 11 out of 21. All right. We are halfway there.
So you'll definitely be done by the time the Phantom Menace comes out in theaters in May.
Maybe, or even if where we're going, probably by the time Acolyte comes out.
Here's hoping.
That'd be fun.
Yeah. Fun. Again, May 3rd to 7th, at least 3rd to 7th. Phantom Menace in theaters. Show the My Beloved trilogy some love. My favorite trilogy some love. Prequels. 25. Phantom Menace to 25. I just noticed on Cineplex, if you're in Canada, Cineplex, Scotiabank Theatre here in Toronto does have tickets available. I've got to snag some before they go away. Remind me to do that, everybody, on in the comments section. Remind me to
Get your
snag some.
tickets now.
Get get my tickets. There we go. All right, and then of course, Tractor Reading Comics reviews. I'll do that. Wednesdays are for comics. Comics are for Wednesdays. This Wednesday, Chris Abbott and I are back talking all about Hierarchical Adventures Crash Landing one shot. Ongoing 45, Star Wars Ongoing 45, and maybe got to get into the what's it called, the Insider short story. Still haven't kept up with the Adrens. So two
Mhm.
she's going to be talking about in this show, the ongoing comic and Crash Landing. By the way, just a spoiler, just a preview, but also yes, I'm going to be reviewing those because it's ongoing, comes out on Wednesday, so I have to wait to actually read it then. But yeah, let's this last week we caught up on previous week's comics. And, so let's check that out right here on the Underworld YouTube channel, Underworld Facebook, etc. Everywhere you get your watch your podcasts. Right here, 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific, Wednesday night. Because Wednesdays are for comics and comics are for Wednesdays. So yeah, check out, grab your comics, grab your dinner, grab your drink, and check us out. All right, so there's the plugs. Joel, what did you get up to this week?
Well, this week I was thinking a little bit more about artistic intent in Star Wars and the very interesting thing of how in a universe created with by multiple people, different people have different interpretations of the art that they are making, and it's like, well, where do we stick with it and where do we decide now we're not going to go with that? So instead of a George Lucas thing for once, I'm actually going to do some of the newer stuff, fun, newer examples. So, the sort of big example first comes from the Rise of Skywalker, where you know how Palpatine is like, oh, the Sith live in me, and I am all the Sith.
Mhm.
I honestly wonder sometimes in terms of just what JJ and Terry were writing, I wonder if they take those lines literally instead of just Palpatine bluster. I wonder if they think that Palpatine is some sort of ancient entity, a lot older than just an 104-year-old man
Mhm.
who's the Sith Lord, and he really is all the Sith. That there is some sort of elongated story behind it. Obviously, newer stuff and source books have decided not to go with literal interpretations of that work,
Interesting.
but it's something I think about in terms of thinking about artistic intent. Another example is good buddy Charles Soule in the Rise of Kylo Ren comic. Um, sorry, I'm getting light in here. I have no idea. I mean, this is something I would love to ask him if we ever get an interview. But is that I wonder if he thinks that Snoke was a literal Palpatine puppet, and that Palpatine literally manipulated instead of what. So again, source books and other things have gone with, which is Snoke is his own person. He got his free will. He might be a enhanced hybrid strand cat thing, but he's still his own entity unto himself. And then the third example, which I put in the notes,
Mhm.
is what was Chuck Wendig's intent when he was talking about how Palpatine heard something out there in the unknown regions? Was he talking to Snoke? Were he and Snoke having dark side mental conversations? Um, after Rise of Skywalker, fans were like, well, maybe now that means to be Exegol. And now, people are saying, well, you know what? Maybe they'll retcon it so that what that is now is whatever Balin's looking for on Peridia.
Right.
But it's like, what was Chuck Wendig thinking when he wrote those lines? Like, what was his own artistic interpretation of those things?
Mhm.
And I don't know. It's just always one of those things
Yeah.
where, like, I like thinking about what did the artist actually think when he wrote those lines, like Palpatine saying, "I am all this," or Chuck Wendig saying he heard something out there. Like what? And it's sort of like, well, and did they stick with it, or is like, oh, now they're just gonna do something else because Star Wars had multiple authors, and it's like, nope, Dave Filoni just make it now this thing. So yeah, that's just sort of been my week of Star Wars, just thinking about those
Yeah.
things.
You picked 3 Palpatine examples. That's very on brand for you, Joel.
It
There-
was the most vague things I could think of that
yeah.
with multiple interpretations.
I know. I'm guessing Charles would say what story for the Snoke thing. What Snoke theory makes for the best story,
Mhm.
makes for the most interesting story. That's the answer. Whatever you think that is.
Mhm.
Um, frankly think not a literal puppet makes
I
for
don't either. I hope not.
um, but yeah, I think that's just what Charles would he'd lawyer us and turn it on back to us.
Mm.
So he'd say. Uh, I just want to say, like, just give my
Mhm.
thoughts here.
Yeah, yeah, go
We
ahead.
can actually go into what we think of these things. With the I'm all the Sith.
Mhm.
So interestingly, so one thing I didn't put this in the notes, but I realized remember. Oh yeah, I saw Dune again last night, and
Oh, nice.
uh, that wild moment where Jessica becomes all the Bene Gesserit of,
Mhm,
or all the Reverend Mothers,
mhm,
and when she gets her memories down. I took it literally. I took it fairly literally. I took it like kind of weird Sith magic, right?
mhm,
Is all over the place in that film. That's why it's kind of its saving grace. I think it's just how interesting that stuff is. One of its saving graces.
mhm.
Uh, yeah, I think there's a sense in which all the Sith kind of subsist in him, and that maybe even comes taps into Lucino with you know you driving right when he wrote the scene where he becomes the Sith
Mhm,
master. He kills Plagueis. He
mhm,
or even before, I think when Plagueis kills Tenebris,
mhm.
right? Is this feeling of this anointing, this ascendancy.
Right.
So to say that the ascendancies to say have some like the legacy of the Sith and the dark side actually some are being infused. So I wouldn't say necessarily literally like having all the memories or the identity of all the
It's
Sith.
not Darth Bane just putting his body in these different people
No,
every
although
time.
again, that's what he was trying to do. Palpatine was trying to do, but
Right.
I think there's something more than simply saying I'm just carrying on their history. I think it's more this weird dark side thing of their essence and it kind of lives in me, or he's claiming that at least. Whatever might really be happening. Again, that's the question. But um, you know, there's yeah, there's it's a great question. Yeah, something close to Palpatine. I don't know. That's also a good question. So I don't know. I mean, what do you think of these three? Or what kind of thoughts do you
Yeah, the
That's the thing,
Palpatine.
right? It's what do we think is really the interesting question.
Oh yeah, I mean that's
Yeah.
obviously. Thankfully, they kept it vague. Yeah, the Palpatine thing is weird because I always feel like I don't know, like the way he talks about, you will ascend. I would get the feeling it's like, what? So like this, so did JJ think like Sith spirits just like kind of enter the new Sith Lord body and like it's just Darth Bane and this
Yeah.
and that and that and that. I mean, I don't know. I've always, you never, and who knows, and there's not enough. I would love someone to go in depth with like, okay, when Palpatine Force essence transferred himself into clone bodies, like did he have help from like dark side spirits and whatnot?
Mm.
And then there's also kind of the metaphysics of like, Palpatine's just so much the dark side now. It's like how much of the original person's even just left at
Yeah.
that point. It's just like he's just an evil entity and humanity's gone from him.
And that's the symbolic thing that's happening, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
As for the Snoke thing, I'm gonna be honest. I think he probably would lawyer us because the real answer is probably keep it vague because even we're not quite sure yet where we want to go with this.
Like just
Um,
one little panel at the very end after
yeah,
Rise of Skywalker comes out.
yeah,
Oh, Palpatine chuckling or whatever.
yeah. So it's like keep it vague. You can do the whole "I became Snoke" thing, whatever that means. We're not sure yet.
Yeah.
And as for the Palpatine thing, probably again was told to keep it vague,
Hmm. Yeah.
and probably could be one of those things where Filoni decides to pick up that thread from Aftermath because weirdly
Right.
the Mandoverse picks up more threads from the Aftermath trilogy than sequel trilogy did. So,
Oh, yeah.
so who knows?
Yeah.
So that's sort of my guess on it. But yeah, it's just one of those things to think about, like original intent versus today, and
Yeah.
interpreting all those weird things.
And I should say I don't mean that, when I say our opinion is what matters, I don't mean Joel, you and I are the arbiters of this. I just mean the fan conversation.
Right.
And that's the thing in Star Wars,
Mhm.
especially, but generally in fiction, the fan conversation is as important. Maybe, I mean, this is the question: is it more important
Right.
than uh, what the original author meant? And so, just different, yeah, different things. What is the chosen one? Different
Mhm.
fan speculations about what those things, or what do the Jedi fear and how Republic, you know, that's
Right.
all those unanswered questions. It's both. And so, what's the there's no right answer. Which is more important, the artistic intent or the fan interpretation? Marshall McLuhan, the content is the audience. There it is. So
I
just
hope
as
we get more Exegol stuff because I would love to see someone try to make
wow.
maybe not make sense of those lines, but just I don't know, go in depth of like is Palpatine being a little bit more literal here than just he's being his blusterous I am the Senate self.
Yeah, yeah. I'm the Senate. Oh, that's interesting. I never made that connection. I'm the Senate. I'm all the Sith. Huh. There we go. Speaking of which, I was spoiled about the fact that Greg Pak is taking us back to Exegol. So that's the only little bit of thing I was spoiled by. Um, yeah.
Goal, my dreams come true, my friend. Dreams
It'll
can
be
come true.
interesting if Greg Pak delves into that, because I mean it's about Vader trying to take down Palpatine. Maybe he discovers, comes upon. Just this little stray thought here. Vader going to Exegol. I haven't read the solicit. I just was spoiled by the headline,
Hmm.
and I don't want to read the solicit. We're getting solicits later, but what if Vader goes to Exegol trying to take out Palpatine, discovers just how powerful he is, and just that's how the schism dies.
Maybe.
They give up and say,
I kind of get the vibe, and this is kind of what I hope for because of like continuity, plot holes, and all that junk. But
yeah,
where not Palpatine, Vader wrecks Exegol so much that he thinks that's why he never bothers to tell Luke about. It's like, oh yeah, I dealt with it. Dealt with it. And he didn't see that the secret Palpatine clones in the super secret hiding spot, under the rug.
there we go.
Like
Uh,
under, but yeah, that's my thought. Maybe he wrecks it, and like that's why he doesn't tell Luke. It's like, oh, I got rid of that. So
we'll find out. We'll find out sometime at some point. Yeah, you're still, they gotta figure out why he never mentioned that.
as a
But,
Force ghost.
yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
All right. So my week, yeah, I mean, I saw Dune last night, late last night because I was off today. Um, yeah. Otherwise, I mean, that's it. It's a different film. You see in IMAX, it's a different film. It was Holy Week. I was too tired. I was just too doing other things. So didn't really Star Wars much. But I read Crash Landing, Powerful Book Adventures, Crash Landing, as I mentioned. So that was good. We'll talk a bit more about that in a little bit. But for now, let's move right on. I was on screen Bad Batch season 3, episode 9, The Harbinger.
The harbinger of what?
The Harbinger of what? So Joe, you got a bunch of notes. I'll just say Ventress. But you can go first. What did you think of this episode?
Oh yeah, really great episode. We get lots of Larry Last Jedi seeing Omega train. Sucker for some Jedi training. Thought it was cool seeing Ventress be the one to train because she's of not what you would consider teacher material. But I gotta love that. Um, first name drop of midichlorians finally, yay. I guess it's sort of like I'm sorry, I get this light in me. But I guess it's like that's what you get for all the other people who find out about this M count thing not being force sensitive. It's like I don't know, they're not gonna look into it that deeply. That was cool. Um, there's always a lot of talk of bringing ventures back and whatnot, and small little tangent conversation, but it's kind of what we do. I wonder if they had made Clone Wars now post buyout, they wouldn't have killed off Ventress because I think a lot about kind of the what Star Wars storytelling was like pre buyout, what it is now. Clone Wars wasn't really focused on being part of the bigger franchise network of quote unquote interconnected stories and whatnot, and just always Star Wars forever until the end of time and space. It was just focused on Clone Wars. So when George was like, or George or whoever's like, okay, time to kill off Ventress, the story's done. We're not going to do any more. Let's go. And I wonder if, like, now that they live in an era of Star Wars forever, they regret some of those decisions.
Yeah.
Like I think about Kira, and whether Saul was told not to, whether he was, or maybe he thought he didn't want to, or kind of a mixture of both. Like they both kind of came to the conclusion, yeah, let's not take Kira off the board because someone else might want to do something with Kira in the future, be it in the comic or just on screen. You don't want to take that character off the board completely, regardless, compared to Ventress,
Mhm.
who was taken off the board because they didn't know how big the board was going to get.
That's true.
Um, so I think a lot about that when it comes to some of the characters they brought back a lot recently. I go Ahsoka. Well, Ahsoka never really died. She didn't even technically die. She just got pulled out of time for like 5 seconds and then
Yeah.
pulled back in. So that doesn't even count. Maul was during the George Lucas era. And I'm trying just to think of characters who have been brought. I mean, I guess Palpatine was almost a weird
Yeah.
break glass because we need a big bad kind of situation here. Um, you know, but Ventures, I always get the feeling of like maybe there was some regret now because we're doing Star Wars forever.
Mhm.
Because like, funny enough, and I'll end my point here.
Yeah.
Another character who I always feel like maybe not George himself, but I think others might kind of like kick themselves for not having around. Padme. I
Yeah.
Star Wars is soap opera y and dramatic enough where
Yeah.
it's like, I could totally imagine a situation where, after Return of the Jedi, like, your mother's alive.
Yeah.
She just like, we gotta find her. And it's like, they could have done a whole
Mhm.
thing of like Luke and Leia discover their long lost mother who lives.
Yeah.
Obviously, George killed off Padme because he wanted it to be done. But now but everyone now writing Star Wars knows it's never done. There's
Yeah.
never true. Their stories end, but they don't really end.
Like
There's
Mason. Yeah.
yeah, that's true. It's no one's ever really gone really, and no story ever ends. Like again, it's like Akira, they kept her alive because they didn't want to take her off the board. So I thought of that a lot too, especially if Venture's going to get maybe a spin-off back more pilot maybe. But yeah, excited, and methinks the Harbinger means dark days are coming, people. 2 episodes next week.
Yeah.
Hang in there.
But this week, yeah, this Wednesday. I'm worried about Pabu. I'm worried about that place.
Me too.
Um yeah, good good things may not last. They definitely mentioned, they nodded to the whole thing with Ventress surviving. Yeah, like
Yeah,
from the
got
Skywalker's Academy, a few lives to live, few lives left. The nice cat there. I think I don't know. I mean, I think that's an interesting lore drop there, but also I think it's a way of kind of, I don't want to use the word retcon, but just smoothing over what happened. I do agree with you, Joel. I think they wouldn't have actually killed her off.
yeah.
That actually makes sense to me that they would have kept her alive, kept her around. And
Mhm.
then, yeah, it was this thing where, yeah, they didn't know, right? They didn't
Yeah.
know if be able to keep making stories in this era or at all, or what was going to happen. So, I
Mhm.
mean, that's why they might have even they would have even made the episodes. They wouldn't have made
Yeah,
they
that's
wouldn't
true.
have made the script into a book. So, there's that. So I don't know. I mean, again, going back to the episode, I definitely enjoyed it. Well, one last thing I'll say about Charles, he also probably got a note saying don't kill Kara. You can use her.
But I could see probably a situation where he's like, I probably shouldn't, and also a note
Well,
saying,
yeah,
don't do it.
you would know not to. I'd be curious to know if there were any conversations there, but
I'm sure.
yeah, because that was hinted. Remember with the archivist, the beginning of the end, she's
Yeah.
trying to take on Vader and Palpatine. So anyway, that's I mean that's another thing. Game of Thrones kind of, again, we've talked about this a few times.
I don't think it's Game of Thrones. Well, I
So
mean,
I'm
Game of
saying
Thrones.
Game of Thrones kind of not ruined, but made other creatives wary of just killing characters off. I think
That's true.
so. That's what I'm saying. Again, the episode, yeah, definitely backdoor pilot vibes. I
Hmm.
and I kind of want this show now.
Me
I want
too.
to see Omega continue to be trained by Ventress. It's amazing. It's interesting to see Ventress continuing on be on the up,
Hmm.
on continuing to returning to the light more. Omega kind of like Sabine being able to touch the Force, because the Force is a wisdom. It's not simply a superpower. It's a wisdom, and so Omega's character opens her up to being able to use the Force, because the Force needs her to succeed, or wants her to succeed,
Mhm.
and is going to help her succeed. So, uh, yeah, it was a good question. Will Omega leave the batch by the end of the series? I mean, what will the batch
Probably.
by the
I'm
end of the
think
series? Yeah.
I'm thinking so. I feel like that's Omega's arc is like little bird's time to leave the nest and grow up. It's
Or
gonna
she'll
be
just be sort of attached to the Bad Batch. But I mean, I'm wondering. I mean, that's the thing is, where does the Bad Batch fit in this kind of early Rebel alliance? It's not a formal Rebel alliance yet, but
right.
where does it fit in that story moving forward? So, because clearly they're all going to be more involved. I think they're all going to be more involved. Um, Obviously, nice to see Echo come back. He's clearly working with Rex, and yeah, yeah, I mean Crosshair, and what's Crosshair gonna do? Probably wants to atone and
Mhm.
get back at the Empire, but also hopefully not just revenge, but he probably has some revenge going on there.
I love, by the way, speaking of atonement, I love the fact that at the end, Crosshair's the one who like gives Ventress his hands. Like,
Yeah,
yeah, I used to be a former bad guy too, so I know the drill. So it's like I feel like Crosshair and I don't know Crosshair and Ventress to get more stuff together. That'd be something. But,
yeah,
but yeah, great episode. Nervous about the next week because oh
yeah.
dear.
We've heard, so just non spoiler, just people tweeting out this is a doozy. It's a doozy.
Yeah.
Uh, just not next week, this week, 2 days from now. Maybe 2 days. Um, 2 days in 5 minutes. 2 days. No, that's not true. It's 3 a.m. Eastern. What am I thinking? I'm thinking about the Acolyte Tuesdays at 9 p.m. That'll be awesome. Sorry.
Thank God. Yes.
Wednesday, midnight Eastern. Midnight Pacific, 3 a.m. Eastern. So, yeah, it's, I mean, and I'll say again, this season is hit on all cylinders. It hasn't had a down moment for me.
I'm
Um,
excited. Yeah. Been pretty
so,
good.
tens across the board. Why not? All right. A few bit of news stories as mentioned above. Got some comics news. Finally. We finally have a plan, wondering what's happening. And yeah, Star Wars Ongoing number 50, and some news about what that is. So this solicits for volume 9 of Charles's ongoing run. So the collected edition, meaning kind of the trade paperback. And I'll just read the description here. Uh, yeah, the end of an era approaches as Marvel begins to set the stage in the comics for Star Wars Episode 6: The Return of the Jedi. Charles Soule weaves together threads from years of storytelling as he presents the grand finale of Marvel's second blockbuster era of Star Wars. The time frame between The Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi has almost been filled, but there are still a few surprising twists and turns yet to come. And of course, Volume 9 collecting Star Wars 2020 issues 46 to 50, which means number 50 is going to be the end of Charles Soule's current ongoing run. He's never going to get away from Star Wars. That's not happening. He's got it yanked around his neck. I'm pretty sure. I don't know. It'd be weird if he took a break. He's writing Trials of the Jedi. He'll be around. But yeah, finally it's nice to actually get that confirmation that they have it in mind. It kind of fits with what he was saying about there's still a few twists left. The fact that 46 to 50 is collected as a thing means that issue number 45, which comes out that also comes out this Wednesday, as I mentioned, that'll be the end of the Lando trial, and then 46 to 50 will be just this final arc, probably involving Sullust, probably involving who knows what, um, maybe even involving Exegol. I don't know, but we know Greg Pox. There also this fits with what Charles had tweeted out, I think, or posted in his Z Blast. That number 50, it is something special. One of those, probably mark on your calendar kind of things he had, saying, okay, this is gonna be the 50th issue of this run. He's I don't know how many issues it's been overall in Star Wars, but it's been up
50.
there. Well, no, in terms of just him writing Star Wars comics, it's got to be. He
Oh,
always written his 100th, I think. And so is that true? Maybe. Yeah. Between Vader and Poe, and then Lando, and then of course Shadow of the Starlight. So yeah, ongoing number 50. But being special, being a special issue that he may be getting to do something he's wanted to do for a while. So, that signified a finale. Now we get the confirmation of this is the finale, and so there is the beeline to Return to the Jedi. So yeah, let's count them up. When should we expect this comic? Likely, so it's count up. 45 comes out this Wednesday, so April. 46 May, 47 June, 48 July, 49 August. I can do math. 49 August, and then 50 would be September. So likely September of 2024 will be the finale for the end of the run, and then maybe they'll take a break for a few months and then come back with something new. 10 years. Here's a thought.
Mm-hmm.
2015, Jason Aaron, number one comes out.
Oh,
Skywalker
yeah.
Strikes comes out.
Oh, well.
10 years later, 2025. It's already been 9 years. Wow, that's amazing. I got a lot of comic books in that time.
Yeah.
I'm just looking at my collection right now. No, 9 long boxes. Yeah, 10 years. So I mean, that makes me wonder if they've timed it out to be sentimental like that. I guess I don't know if they really do that or if they care about doing that, but yeah, that would track. So yeah, so that's that news. What do you think about this news, and what comes to mind about it all?
What comes to mind? What always comes to mind? What comes next? Boy, we as fans have that problem, don't we? Never always look away to the future. Never our minds on where we are. We are doing. Um, but no. Yeah, because like, okay, um, you know, this era's ending. Um, and I don't know if they're ready to completely give up Luke and Leia as their flagship for the comics. I mean, they've been the flagship of the comics since it started. We've always had some the mainline issue have always been Luke and Leia adventures. I'm almost kind of shocked sometimes it was
Yeah.
allowed to be, given how dry how reserved they like to be for the other times, especially mostly post Endor stuff. Which I guess I can understand, considering that's probably a bit more of that was a bigger thing because we're getting the sequel, so it's like no one really. We kind of got to build up like what were they doing, like get us hyped for it as well. Um, and if they so what do they do in that regard, right? So it's like okay, we got 5 to 6 to 9 years before that Mandoverse arc really kicks off.
Yeah.
The 1 year aftermath era, that's been covered pretty decently. I guess you could do that and just kind of work around it where it's like, okay,
Yeah.
I mean, remember, time in comics,
Yeah.
5 issues doesn't mean 5 years passed, just means could be a day, could be
Could be an
5,
hour.
could be an hour, could be less.
Mhm.
And you just kind of work around it where it's like, okay, the first 5 issues cover this arc, and then you say, the events of Aftermath, this have taken place in between these comic arcs. Now, this is what Leia was doing. And then she got incapacitated because she got pregnant, or she was pregnant with baby Ben. That's what Han was doing. That's what Luke was doing. Something like that. I mean, we always talk about maybe they'll switch eras. Maybe they'll go to prequel era. That they even a lot more gun ho about talking about that era. Maybe. I don't know. I'm trying to just kind of I'm trying to think about less what I want because what
Yeah.
I want is always going to be different. Like, okay, what are the signs? What's possible? And then we have to consider also, movies are going to come back soon. Maybe they're going to want to start tying in more with that to get ready for the Mando movie. Although that's technically 2026, so they got a year or two to go.
Yeah.
But I've always said,
12
but
comics or whatever.
yeah, so that's some time. Star Wars is in transition more and more. We're kind of entering a new era. High Republic's ending next year. So yeah, I'm just kind of thinking like, okay, what are they willing to do? What will they do? And that's kind of just my question. Let alone forget who's just writing it for a hot second.
Yeah.
We can,
True.
but yeah.
I mean, there's a question. What do you want? Like, what would you be excited about?
I don't know, quite frankly, because it really depends, right? Like I
Spend the next week thinking about it and come back.
I don't know. Like maybe post Endor era would be cool. Maybe some Anakin Obi-Wan training adventures that would be fun.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't think anything really super intrigues me because I don't really have a thing really, and I know that the thing that would really excite me, like Luke and Ben solo adventures, they ain't touching that with the comics. They probably
Yeah,
want to save that for something bigger.
yeah,
So I mean, I guess it'd be cool to kind of just see the post Endor era. Uh, but or if they go back, maybe like rebel soldiers on the front lines. That from
that'd
a
be pretty
not
cool.
Luke Leia perspective of the original trilogy war. 'Cause there's more going on in the galaxy than just those three having adventures.
Yeah,
Um, where are the Akbar adventures? But yeah, I don't know. I guess I'm kind of open to almost anything, and then I'll have to find out who's writing it because
that's
that like I would love Captain Scott to go over the main line. That would be cool.
that'd be good. Yeah,
He'd be good. Or Jodie Hauser. She hasn't
yeah,
gotten the main line.
should be
She's
great.
another fake. I love her. So yeah.
My brain's
Uh.
going. My brain's going. I think I have it. I mean, just you mentioned Jodie Hauser.
Mhm.
I don't know if this is gonna be true, but uh, I mean, I think I'll get to what I was thinking in a second because I do think I feel in my gut, for whatever it's worth, pretty confident that they might continue with Luke after Endor because
Ooh.
they again we know his story fairly well, Chuck Wendig, and the
Mhm.
Shattered Empire comic uh, really continues on. It was written before, but continues on uh, Leia and Shara and Cass Dameron, the Dameron family. Um, continues that on. We have Luke in the one level in Battlefront 2. And that's basically it.
That's true.
We have a bit of Lando on Bespin, just an interlude there.
Mm-hmm.
You know, what else do we have? Mainly, yeah, mainly. I mean, if any of the big three, we have Leia and Han. I mean, at least we have one big moment with Han, the life debt, Han
Right.
Fisher. But yeah, we don't really have Luke, and we have a bit of Lando. I was wondering about this. I mean, we have how Luke and Lando ended up on Pasana much later,
Mm-hmm.
but how did Luke and Lando end up being? I mean, I guess we kind of got that too in Shadow of the Sith, but is there more? Is there more? Is there Beaumont Kin? Can he come into this as well?
I think he's not born yet.
Really? Maybe okay.
Yeah, he's a youngin still.
Uh,
He's a baby. I think.
young Beaumont kid going to school. I don't know. Keep going to school. Um, at the time, yeah. So I think that would fit. I mean, then we might still have to get Charles to write that or Kevin. I don't know. Um, I'm thinking. I mean, Kevin or especially Jody would be perfect for uh like in between Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones. I think
That'd be cool.
have to tell more. I mean, we have again with Charles Soule, we have this four-ish Obi-Wan Anakin, or yeah, Obi-Wan Anakin run.
Mhm.
But yeah, why not keep going with that? Because um, you know, I mean that's the thing, right? Phantom Menace at 25. It's selling like things are going to sell like hotcakes. The heat, the intensity of that is so much higher now than it was. It would be a bit of a gamble, maybe, but I think enough of us would eat that up. I mean, I definitely would, obviously, but eat that up. Although, I do find interesting that idea of you mentioned the rebellion.
Mhm.
One era that hasn't been fully filled out is from Kenobi and Solo to A New Hope. There's been a bunch, but
Andor, Rogue One.
yeah, I mean that's a little later, but like even like that first 5 years between Kenobi and Solo, even picking up what they would have done with Solo too. Um,
That'd be
and
interesting.
that whole Tatooine thing. Get Ethan Sachs to write. I mean, he's gonna be writing. Well, here's the thing:
Mhm.
we have two comic books set before the Phantom Menace going right now. They just started Lando and
Mhm.
Mace Windu. So, or Django, not Lando.
That Lando,
All
I think a
right,
little.
Lando, Django.
I think Lando might be at least a teenager. If
Yeah,
no, I
little
think
younger. But Django and Mace Windu. Speaking of Ethan Sachs, Django fan. Yeah, so to build out more of that story, and yeah, to tell more of an Anakin, Obi-Wan, Padme. Would it, again, is the market ready for it? Is the comic book market ready for it? Would there be a gamble? Would that be a bit of a gamble? I don't know, because I mean, is the comic book market still primarily the grizzled older folks who just want their Luke Han and Leia?
I actually got a question. Maybe you would know.
Yeah,
So, obviously, who the writer is probably the most important thing, of
yeah.
course. But are these writers mandated? Like, okay, like
Mhm.
we know the main line was after to continue on after Empire Strikes Back, and they got Charles Soule to do it. Is it a
Mhm.
question of hey Charles, we want to continue now to Empire to Return of the Jedi. You
Hmm.
want to do it? And he's like, yeah. Or is
Yeah,
Charles like, I have the idea for a post I always say post Empire to
yeah,
Endor storyline, and they're like, great. Or is it a mix of both? Or it's like, if you want the Star Wars main line, you
yeah,
have to do this specific thing. Compared to like, if you want to just do Anakin Obi-Wan as Padawan
yeah.
Master, we got to start from scratch. Uh,
Right.
so
I
what?
mean, we
What?
don't well because he has this 4 issue comic. I'm pretty sure my speculation is they sat him down
Mhm,
because if you were gonna write a story, well, here's what we know, right?
mhm,
Is this era has been the great era of crossovers, the
right.
great era of really plot this out, sort this out, involve Ethan and Alyssa and Greg and
Mhm,
everybody, uh, and write this story together, kind of like Team Luminous, right?
mhm,
Um, they probably sat him down and said, or emailed them and said, "Hey, give us an outline for a 50 issue comic on set between Empire and as the main run." Just and then if they like that pitch, I don't know. I mean, I don't know what the answer is. This is me speculating. But I do suspect that okay, that it was a Lucasfilm decision and a Marvel Lucasfilm whatever Star Wars decision to say
editorial. Let's just say editorial.
yeah editorial say okay, this is the next major thing we're doing. And they
Right.
probably even planned that out in 2015. Um,
Probably. But I'm
so
just kind of curious if, like, is it editorial going, okay, the Star Wars main line's about to end this era.
mhm.
Are we now, is it editorial saying, all right, next time we're finally entering the post Endor era?
I
Joby
suspect
Hauser, do you want in?
I,
Or,
yeah, I suspect that's the case. Although again, if it like Jodie Hauser's The Age of Republic comics are so fantastic, but for her to write the main line for in set in the prequel era, that would be brilliant. I'd be I
I mean,
don't
if she
know.
wrote for the post Endor era too, I mean, I wouldn't mind. She's great
Yeah, that's
anyway.
true.
Let her write wherever
That's
she
true.
wants.
Yeah.
So,
Oh yeah, that's true. Um, and of
but
course
yeah.
I'm writing the Thrawn adaptation, Thrawn Alliance adaptation, which is set in both eras, right? Thrawn Alliance is set in both. So fun times. Fun.
Ooh, fun times.
Do you have any
Yeah.
more thoughts on that, or you
Nope.
good?
Who knows? We'll find
Yeah.
out soon.
Yeah, I'm sure Chris and I will chat more about this on
Yeah.
Wednesday if we
Mhm.
have time. Oh, we should have time. Yeah, yeah, a few weeks. All right, moving right along. It's a bit of High Republic speculation here. Only because I read Crash Landing, Crash Landing. Sorry, High Republic Adventures Crash Landing, and in it that what's interesting again, Chris and I are going to go into this too. Is there's some backstory that we haven't really gotten yet. Crash mentions to this arch premier guy there was the civil war after the Nile left after Midnight Horizon. In this year between phases 1 and 3, um, and you got to believe Daniel Jose Older has this plotted out. But you know, what is that story, and when are we going to get that story, and are we going to get that story? Because it seems fairly substantial.
Mhm.
And so I was kind of jokingly being like, okay, DJ and Alyssa, get going on this. The question is when. When would this kind of thing make sense? The reason I bring this up is, as the initiative starts to come to an end,
Mhm.
they've got to be plotting in, seeding in story points, uh, set between phases 1 and 3, set between phase 2 and the 150 years between phase 2 and uh, and the main line, if you can call it that.
Set during phase 1 and 3, but we just didn't see it because they weren't important yet.
Sure, yeah, or
It's a big
all these
galaxy.
different, or we didn't know it was important, and they're just spinning out. But they're starting to see these things in. Say, look, this is a time period. This is a thing, a time in Star Wars canon. We can go back and write stories, write novels, write young adult novels, or whatever. Um, Set at these times because these are just characters now. It just when do we get that? And specifically, I think this Corellian with Crash, uh, Alice Ongwa, and this Corellian Civil War, and her role in that as a security operative. When are we gonna get that? So I kind of speculating, because it does seem like the kind of thing they would do. It's the kind of thing we might want. It won't have like the High Republic label on it or anything. It'll just here's a Crash Wong story, Crash Ongwa story. Um, so maybe I think maybe like 2027 or later. Give a year and a bit just to clear the deck, clear the air.
Mm-hmm.
I also wonder, are we going to get more detail as backstory of this Corellian Civil War, of these little things seated in more Phase 3 stories, comics or novels? I know. I mean, Crash shows up in the main High Republic Adventures line because DJO is bringing her in order to set up this comic and just remind us what's happening there, or maybe both. Maybe it seems like it might be both, but it's just jogging my mind of saying, Joel, the thing you've said quite a bit of, they you know they can go back and write more stories with these characters that have been so well developed and so fleshed out, but still have more story to tell, and there's a fan base for them already, and
Right.
that's another thing. I mean, one of the things with the Living Force, which comes out next week, by John Jackson Miller. Next
right.
week, this week, no,
Oh,
next week,
shoot.
Tuesday, I think. Um, that's kind of the same sort of thing. I mean, it's not. It's also, of course, going back to the comics question set just before the Phantom Menace, but definitely has the High Republic in view. It has these masters reminiscing about the good old days, and um, that's it's another example. Well, here's a good episode idea, Joel.
Yeah.
High Republic in other High Republic references in other storytelling.
Ooh, that'd be fun.
I mean, it's kind of sparse right now, but um, yeah,
I
there's
mean, we got. I mean, technically, if you want to count stuff like the Amaxine Station,
yeah.
going back to the Rise of Kylo Ren in 20.
I mean, I was thinking just uh, Starlight Squadron, and
Well, that too. I forgot about them.
Talkie Droid, and of course the first mention of it in Dooku Jedi Lost. So yeah, but the saying, they actually can just do full on novels set in this time, and Lucasfilm said, yeah, why not do it? Stamp of approval.
Yeah.
So again, they'll have to give a few years of a gap, but it's one of those examples. This Corellian Civil War and Crash's role in it. One of those examples that just comes out of nowhere because it comes at you out of nowhere in this comic. So I don't know. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that topic generally, or
Nah, that sounds cool. I mean, I like it when authors and writers and be it book or screen, kind of just add wacky stuff because, like, it's like the Clone Wars, right? Like, I think we think of the Clone Wars as this big thing now. It's like in '77, it's just this thing that George put in to make the universe, add some spice to the universe and the world building. It's like, oh, there was a thing called the Clone Wars that happened. What is it? I don't know. Now it's the biggest thing ever. So, you know, those little spices can sometimes turn into big things if you ever go back to them.
turns into a tasty meal in a whole restaurant and a whole chain of restaurants and a whole 7-season greatest series of all time of restaurants. There we go. We're bringing the cooking metaphors back. We haven't done that in a while. The food metaphors.
Yeah. But yeah, I like it when authors do that. It's always cool.
Yeah. Fun times. All right. We can move right along. It is time. It's time. Let's have a lecture here, Joel. Come to class.
Force Ghost. The ghost with the most.
There we go.
All right. So let us begin. All right, so I'm going to give a little bit of brief lecture of history of the Force Ghost. So, Force Ghost, as we all know, really stemmed, of course, from A New Hope in '77, when George killed off Obi-Wan Kenobi, but I guess he didn't really want to get rid of the character completely. So, he had Obi-Wan's voice in Luke's head. Use the Force, Luke, like indicate, oh, what's that about? And why did Kenobi's body just disappear all of a sudden? Originally, we were going to keep Kenobi alive, and then as he realized, Kenobi doesn't really do anything in the third act, so I'll kill him off, but I'll find a loophole. Find a loophole. So then, obviously, Force Ghosts truly come into fruition with Empire Strikes Back. That was always going to be the case. Back in the day, when Vader and Anakin were two separate people, Anakin's Force Ghost was going to show up as well. And Luke and he were going to give the sacred Jedi oaths so he could be inducted into the Jedi Order. So Force Ghosts were a lot more just a thing that happened in the time period. Obviously, Kenobi comes up in Return of the Jedi, has a talk with Luke. And then when the expanded material kind of came out, especially around the '90s, Force Ghosts were kind of again treated as either a thing Jedi can always do, like every Jedi Master just kind of vanished, like it seemed like it's something you did. Tim Zahn had an interesting approach, which was Force Ghosts, where he kind of treated them like regular ghosts. They're like, I'm here to do this one thing because I'm not ready to pass. And then Kenobi eventually just passes, and Kenobi never speaks to Luke again.
Purgatory than
kind of, yeah. So that was kind of Tim Zahn's interpretation of Force Ghost at the time. And then obviously we get the prequel era. There's some Sith spirits too, but that's a whole different thing. Then of course we get the prequels. And that's where the idea of Force Ghost kind of being something that not all the Jedi can do, but you got to be really in tune with the Force. The seeds are planted first with Revenge of the Sith, and then obviously later with the Clone Wars. Kind of like, only the best of the best, the most true to the light and the Force and all that can become Force Ghost, and they can come in and out whenever. You did it. You've achieved enlightenment.
Yeah.
And that is kind of the basic lecture of Force Ghost up to this point. Really, they're here. They kind of show up every now and then. They haven't shown up as much as you think, which is maybe a good thing because I think the Force Ghosts are considered like special. You got to keep them. You got to keep them in the back of your pocket for when you really need them.
Yeah.
And then. So then Force. So that's Force Ghost for you. Anything you want to open up to, Matthew? Discussion?
Yeah, I mean, just to think about the Yoda arc in season 6 of the Clone Wars, the Netflix season. Yeah, victory for all time, right? That it has to be, there has to be something about the way a Jedi lived, or the way or a Force user lived, a light side user lived. The way a light side user dies, I mean, that's the thing with Anakin. And the big question everyone gets is, why is Anakin allowed to be a Force Ghost? Well, because he died, the way he died, the way he went out. And the reason we're bringing this up now at Easter, we could also bring it up in November, in Churchland. The resurrection and the belief that death is not actually the end, and it shouldn't be, because light and good. I mean, people who follow the light, they follow the light beyond death, beyond the limits of death. Right. That's the thing with the dark side, is death serving death, or the dark side is death for its own sake, and
or clinging to life,
to have control over who lives and dies, and prevent yourself from dying, and or the ones you love from dying, or whatever, the weird timely-wimely magically Force Ghosts, whatever, or Sith magic, dark arts, cloning, etc. The light side, and that's the thing with victory for all time. It demonstrates how, with the light side, you actually can submit to death and submit to the limits of life, and in so doing, uh, you can transcend those limits. It's it submits to the limits of my own. It's a sign of humility, saying, my own life is only meant to be for so long, for so much. It's a scary thought, but it's a real thought. I can only do so much, and I can only do so much light. I have to be a part of something bigger than myself, and
Mhm.
that outlives me. I
Mhm.
have to be a part of something that outlives me, and so Force Ghosts are able to continue to be a part of this thing that outlives them. And uh, you know, that's the thing with it's this funny thing about um, it's funny thing about how it's both this Eastern sort of becoming one with everything and the Western,
Ghost.
well, the Eastern sort of one with everything. I'm not ghosts, saints is what I'm
Right.
getting at here. It's why it would be good for November too, because um, here we go. This is where I'm going here. The idea of saints are also those who commit to being part of something bigger than themselves,
Mhm.
and so it's a little different. I mean, well,
Mhm.
there are very rare ideas of apparitions. Visions of Mary coming to people, and I happen to believe them. Why not? Believe it or not. I know they're weird and it doesn't make sense, but they're very well kind of these documented and tested. It's extremely rare. Oddly enough, force ghosts aren't as rare as saint apparitions in the story. So as we'll get to, but it's kind of a similar idea in that way of yeah, you continue. The victory for all time is to say that the bonds people have with each other, the bonds that are forged in the light of seeking life and the flourishing of life and the common good. Those, death, submitting to the limits of death, yes, is a part of that because it's beyond me. It's a bigger than myself, but also then to say the force rewards and says, okay, you're able to continue to be a vessel. And so yeah, that's the idea of what force ghosts are, and we'll get into a little bit into why that is. But yeah, that Yoda arc really, I mean, seeing with Qui-Gon, seeing uh yes, really affects. I mean, affects everything because and just one last tangent about that Yoda arc. I call that was one of the first, not the first. Mortis was the first, but one of the real saga defining moments in Clone Wars, right? Just this whole thing about the rise of the Empire and the fall of the Empire and the restoration of the Jedi, a restoration of servants of the light in the galaxy. Yeah, this ebb and flow that the Force will always bring back the balance that is service to the light, into life, for light in life. So um, yeah, the Force Ghosts definitely tie into that well, and it was important to note, yeah, that everything that will happen in the original trilogy and the rest of the saga is also connected to the triumph. I can use this idea of triumphant, the saints triumphant, the triumph of the light over death through death. So happy Easter. So yeah, that's kind of my thoughts about the idea of Clone Wars, of Force Ghosts.
It's funny we call him Force Ghost because in the Western concept,
Yeah.
ghosts don't really are meant to be what the Force ghosts we see are, right? Like I think of ghosts as like they don't want to pass on to the world of the death. They kind of are stuck here.
Mhm.
You ever, I don't know if how much you watch ghost things, but it's always the story of like ghosts who haunts a house because they didn't want because I don't know something bad happened to them and they can't get
Yeah.
over it. If anything, cis spirits are more like force ghost, or more like not for more like traditional ghosts because it's like
Mhm.
they bound themselves to this living thing and they don't want to leave. They
They
don't
cling
want.
to life, right?
They cling to life even in corporeal form. Ooh,
Mhm.
that's a funny word. Corporeal form. Or Palpatine's case, he's trying to have a body and keep it in himself.
Have his
Uh,
cake and eat it too.
Yeah, or Exar Kun in Legends, he haunts the Yavin temples because he
Mhm.
didn't want to die.
Right.
So he's stuck there now. He's a real ghost haunting the temple.
He
Um,
refuses to accept the limits of death. Right.
exactly. Meanwhile, it's like Obi-Wan, Yoda's like, yeah, time to die. I'm
Yeah.
gonna sacrifice myself. Where Yoda's like,
Hmm.
I'm old. Peace out.
Yeah.
Vanish. But yeah, he's like, he can still come back and give
Mhm.
words of Yoda wisdom.
Sit on a log.
Um,
You
and
know.
sit on a log. I mean, hey, Kenobi could sit on logs too.
Mhm.
Um, so I guess here's the question of the
Mhm.
what what do the Force Ghost what do they what is their purpose in the storytelling of Star Wars? When a Force Ghost comes,
Yeah.
what should a Force Ghost do? Now, to be fair, I think the answer is simple as whatever the author wants to.
Yeah.
I mean, George was almost going to have Force Ghost fight Palpatine, and that would have been kind of cool. Originally,
Mhm.
there's even one story in Splinter of the Mind's Eye from '78, which is like the unofficial sequel to Star Wars, where the spirit of Obi-Wan was going to take over Luke's body to help him defend off against Darth Vader, in a lightsaber duel. Because Luke wasn't ready to fight just yet.
Right.
So
Sure.
so the key answer is whatever the heck the author wants.
Yeah.
Um, but I guess what should Force Ghost? What should a Force Ghost do? Like, what is their
Mhm.
purpose? Really, just give wisdom and then go peace out? Do we want more active Force Ghost if it serves a purpose? Like,
Mhm.
what should a Force Ghost do?
Yeah. I mean, so one thing I did want to mention, and I'll bring it up here, is the Return of the Jedi Blu-ray. It's not Sebastian Shaw. That's Hayden Christensen right there.
Right.
Um, one of the things they do is tie the saga together and tie the story together and say, that tie time together, right?
Obi-Wan Yoda looking at Anakin like, "Dang, you get to look young, or we're all old and crispy."
Yeah. Although
But
they could have shown up as however they wanted. I mean, that's this is a part of another part of the answer. Normally, I mean, this is the thing with having hidden there
Mhm.
changes this a little bit, but they're appearing to Luke as Luke knows them.
Mhm.
In a way, Hayden's there appearing to Luke as he wished Luke had known him, right? As the Jedi Knight, the heroic Jedi who
Young
is
and
his
handsome.
brother.
Mhm.
Young and still a servant of the light as best he can. I mean, obviously at that point he was still changing, but that's when we see him now, right now we've watched Clone Wars, we've watched the prequels, we see him turn, we see him fall, but we see him but we also see him heroic, especially in Clone Wars. We see him train Ahsoka and take her under his wing, and uh you know
Ow.
so that whole thing about bringing Luke back to this other time when Anakin was this heroic Jedi Knight who did his best with what he could at the time, and that is the Anakin that has returned. Sebastian Shaw was just a body for Vader in a way. The Hayden is the Anakin that has returned and chucked Palpatine over the hill, over the thing, to save Luke, right? Not to become the Sith Lord, but to save Luke, and that's why why he's able to become a Force Ghost too. So it also, that's another thing it does. It says that the Force has recognized this character as this person as someone who worth emulating, someone who has a connection. Again, this is the Saints thing, has a connection to the character either personally or in the real world it's more that person's story because usually centuries ago. But yeah, it
Now,
is
now I can't help but think of like that's why Puppet Yoda in Last Jedi makes sense because Luke only knew Yoda as a puppet. If he appears a CG character, Luke go, "You look all pixelated, Master Yoda."
I
Almost.
mean, funny.
I mean, I guess that means that maybe if Force Ghost Obi Wan shows up to Ahsoka, he could go up with Ewan McGregor because like Ahsoka didn't see Obi-Wan as Alec Guinness. You still see young and handsome. So
That should be the case, right?
that's
The other thing you're saying, they need to be careful,
right.
right? The writers, authors, storytellers, uh, film screenwriters, they need to be careful bringing them in because they could, like, it has to have something also to do with who Qui-Gon is. Like, why does Qui-Gon show up at the end of Kenobi? It has to have something to do with Obi-Wan. Has to do with something to do with Qui-Gon. Again, why does Hayden show up at the end of Return of the Jedi? Because it has to do with
Well, it's
bringing,
Anakin. Period.
or what Anakin period, yeah. Bringing Anakin back and signifying that. Um, I mean, one thing we'll get to is Claudia Gray's Master and Apprentice, which is echoed in the Kenobi finale, right? Um, was Obi-Wan's been calling for help, and that's the thing we can say about Force Ghosts is, are they the actual person? Are they just the Force, a manifestation of the Force coming to them? I mean, it's probably both. They definitely have the memories of the character, of the person, but also the way Force Ghosts could be possible. Like, it's both the East-West thing, right? The one with everything, but also the actual real person is the West.
That's weirdly to tie that back to what we were talking about at the beginning. Obviously not Force Ghost, but it's like it's the Palpatine thing. Is Palpatine one with the dark side so much, and then it's like, is he just the dark side? And how much of that is Palpatine, the individual human being of House Palpatine of Naboo? Also, here's a question. Well, here's something interesting. I think in terms of like the Force Ghosts, like there's a story. Have you ever read just stories of Jedi and Sith? It's like kind of a youngish
Tales of
novel.
Jedi and Sith. But yeah, I think I have it, but I haven't read it.
There's a story of in Return of the Jedi where right after Yoda dies, Yoda's Force Ghost appears before Palpatine of all people, and just kind of like about to get your stuff messed with. You are, yes. And Yoda's like, and Palpatine's like, you dead, like Palpatine's just like, I'm going to beat you. Very Palpatine taunting, yada yada.
Yeah.
And Yoda's just like, yes, you, yeah. And like, so I guess it's like, yeah, they went with the Force, but I guess they're also themselves because only Yoda would go to Palpatine just to kind of mess with him for like a few minutes and then peace out or out peace.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a question of what in our real world, what do you want to emphasize? But I mean, I think the point is that person is so filled with the will of the Force that they can come back. And I mean, part of it is the person, the actual character that they appear to, that has to be able to relate to the Force in that way. But I mean, that's more what's happening in Mortis, for example, with the visions or any other kind of flashbacks. Isn't necessarily actually them.
Yeah, but that was in the
sorry. No, in Force Ghosts. Force Ghosts are actually them in a way, and so yeah, I mean, you have Obi-Wan on the log. Neither was I when you taught me. I was too young or whatever.
So was I, do you remember? I guess there's another question. In terms of like the Force Ghosts and like, I guess this is sort of the difference between like everything one with the Force and then individual like true ghosts. Like, no, this is Yoda. This is Yoda as we see him. I guess they can. I mean, there aren't any defined rules, of course, but there's also the question of like, in terms of how they appear, when do they decide to appear and whatnot. It's like, especially as we move on, I guess Rise of Skywalker says yes in terms of like, can they appear before people they've never met? Like Rey never met Yoda. Rey maybe knows of Yoda via Luke, but she doesn't know of Yoda. Although at the beginning she says like, I'm trying to make contact with the Jedi spirits of old. So I guess that kind of indicates, well, I guess the Jedi spirits don't have to be people you knew. It's not like actual ghosts like Luke, who like like obviously rambling a little bit, but like obviously in the original trilogy, it's Yoda and Obi-Wan because who did Luke no, Yoda
Yeah.
and Obi-Wan. So
Yeah.
it's obviously people. It's not like Master Jarl Poof comes before Luke to give him words of advice.
This guy.
Although I guess technically Elzar Man did in the Force pool vision, but that's not a
Yeah.
Force ghost, so that doesn't count. But I guess I'm curious. It's like, do could Force Ghost, people you never met show up, and like, would you like that as a thing? Like, 1,000 years in the future when we're starting Episode 0, the new saga, not a new person from nowhere who's hopefully this time from nowhere. How would you feel if just randomly Force Ghost Yoda comes up and like, advice I will give because in trouble you are.
Yeah.
Like, is that something that should happen? I mean, I guess the answer is we don't know until it happens. But I guess I'm just kind of thinking kind of randomly in terms of the implications of Force Ghost and their
Yeah.
usage.
Well, again, that's why you have to be careful. First of all, I mean, it could be very fan servicey
Right.
in a bad way. Um, that's why.
Plus, Yoda gives some good advice.
Yeah. Um, yeah, it has to be someone the character will trust
Hmm.
and will actually pay attention to, and not just say who are you? Why do I care what's happening here? Um, I mean, that's why Qui-Gon shows up, right?
Right.
It's why Yoda shows up. It's why I mean that's the funny thing. It's still why Anakin shows up as
Well, I
Vader.
guess Luke and Leia show up at the end too.
Yeah, why Luke and Leia? It has to be that. But what about all those voices in
Hmm.
Exegol? Are those Force ghosts?
Hmm.
I mean, I don't know. I don't think Ahsoka's dead because I don't think Ahsoka's ever going to die.
Yeah.
But we know Kanan. We know all these other characters who Rey has never met.
Hmm.
Are those Force ghosts just Force ghost voices? And the point there, of course, I mean, this is another related thing, is to
Hmm.
say that the past continues with these characters. The past continues with you. The legacy of the Jedi carries on. Now, with Yoda and Luke on Octo, it's all about that, right? It's all
Right.
about that Luke has been afraid to hand on the legacy of the Jedi, and Yoda has to knock it out of him. Whereas Rey has already taken them, right? And
Right.
Luke doesn't know, and think of the books and all that. Um, with Rey, on Exegol, with the voices that we've talked about, Palpatine being all the Sith.
Hmm.
You know, Rey. I mean, I do think this is a little more metaphoric here,
Of course.
but Rey being all the Jedi and carrying on that legacy, and the cloud of witnesses cheering her on and supporting her on. Um, there's lots of characters she doesn't know, but the fact that it's a chorus, and it's also characters we know, right?
I I
And
guess
connect to. So that's also part of it.
right. I guess see the closest to the example I gave earlier.
Mm.
Actually, it's just the Lego Star Wars holiday, one of the holiday
Yeah.
specials, because like Finn meeting Force Ghost Anakin. I mean, it's cool, and I mean that's Lego, so
Yeah.
it's funny. Yeah, but it's like I mean, guess Force Ghost Anakin still gives Finn who's a Jedi a good lesson. So I don't know.
I
I
mean,
don't know.
it's so good. No, you
I just don't know if like if I mean obviously it's Lego, so they can get away with a lot. But it's like again, like Finn never met Anakin. He probably maybe heard of him,
yeah,
but he's like he never met Anakin. He didn't know what Hayden Christensen probably looked like. So
yeah.
it's like, but on the other hand, it's like, well, can then just kind of random Jedi just pop up before people, even if they never met? I don't know.
I mean, I'd like to see, especially someone who has read their history, who cares about history, who will trust character. Like it'd be wild if Vernestra Rowe shows up in the sequel trilogy or something, or a sequel era or something. It'd be wild if. I mean, I guess that wouldn't quite work because only Qui-Gon's the one who figured it out. But
Hey,
I
I
mean,
mean, Qui Gon showing up before Ray would be kind of cool, or Obi Wan.
yeah, but to say if well, because we know Ray
Hmm.
knows the story of Obi-Wan
Hmm.
training Anakin or whatever.
Hmm.
Well, now she does. Now that Luke told her about it, but you know, uh, yeah, all those things are. There's different ways of coming to trust someone, right?
That's
It's
true.
historical figure, especially. I mean, that's the thing though, is if the advice is helpful, if the advice actually, here's what I was saying last week: spurs the character on to make a positive contribution, spurs the audience on to make a positive contribution.
Hmm.
You know, judge a tree by its fruit, as
Hmm.
Jesus says. So yeah, that's part of it too. And um, you know, yeah, that what again? What is the purpose? What is the story narrative purpose? And
Yeah.
again, it can't simply be about say, oh, it would be cool if this one showed up. I was really hoping Anakin would show up in the sequel trilogy. He didn't because he didn't need to, and the characters didn't need him to because the characters didn't really know him.
Right. It's like, oh yeah, like I could go on a rant about why anyone who says that it should have been Anakin in that moment with Kylo was just wrong in so many ways.
With
Uh,
in
when
Last Jedi or on
no, in Rise
Solo,
of Skywalker, when Han shows up, everyone says it should have been Anakin instead of
it should have
Han.
been but
Well, I mean, that probably would have been the if Carrie was alive, shoot new scenes
yeah, well, yeah,
kind of
that
thing.
would have been yeah. I think that was the intent.
But I don't know. I mean, I really like that Han was there.
Yeah,
I think
oh
he
yeah, it
was.
worked great. Yeah,
So, but like everyone says that should have been Anakin, and I'm like,
I've
why?
never I've never heard that in my life,
I
honestly.
have, I have. Although I've heard people. Sorry if you hear noise. My dad's making
That's
things.
good. I would
Um,
have much preferred. I mean, if anyone, Anakin showing up to Luke in Last Jedi, right? If anyone,
I don't know. I actually think Yoda still works
oh,
better than
love it so much.
Anakin.
Could be
Honestly,
wrong.
like if I had to like pick maybe an Anakin just for a sake, maybe have Anakin show up before Rey in Octo, not Octo, in yeah Octo. That's where she is in Rise of Skywalker. But even then, I'm like, I don't know.
I mean, I can see at some point it being helpful for Anakin to show up to Kylo Ren. I mean, that's the thing of being helpful if they have the conversation about, you know, Anakin was weak. He didn't complete the task. I will finish what you started, grandfather. To pick that up, right? You say, well, hold on a minute. But he got there anyways, right? He got there in the sense, oh, wait a minute. No, that isn't strength. That is weakness.
I mean, I don't want to debate this about the sequel trilogy, although it'd be fun. Would Anakin have been helpful in this entire trilogy? I mean, I sometimes like. I
Right.
mean, granted, some of this is just because novelizations, and we got to take that with a grain of salt. But Kylo knew that Anakin came back to the light side, and he thought he was weak for it for a long
Well,
time.
that's what I'm saying is if there was a need,
Mhm.
that would be it. There'd be it
Right.
to confront that. But again, he got there anyway. And he got there with his father, right?
Which just makes him
which,
no.
which is even better. And would have, I mean, again, I think would have been with his mother, which would have been better. And it was better. So yeah,
Right.
I mean, the whole thing about wanting Anakin, that would have been just that would have been fan service for me. I think Ryan would have done a great job with that, but
Mm.
he chose not to because you're right. He didn't need to actually show up. So,
Although I do like Han a lot because of how it just kind of comes full circle with Force Awakens, and
yes, that's
now he and the person he killed now is like there's some reconciliation there.
mhm.
Not that I don't think Han was ever angry at Kylo Ren, obviously. And we can debate on whether or not that was a Force Ghost Han or not. I think that's playing loose with the rules, but who knows? That's one of those moments like I don't care. It's a great moment. Speaking of great moments,
Mhm.
unless we have more thematic stuff we want to talk about, we want to talk about just some of the great Force Ghost moments of Star Wars.
Sure.
Sure, let's go. So I mean, obviously we talked about it, but yeah, Yoda and Luke probably the best Force Ghost usage of the saga. Although it's funny, they're actually like only in see three, five of them. But it's my favorite. It's my favorite moment. Just kind of seeing, Luke's reopened himself up to the Force again. Now that he has, who's the first person to pop in? Master Yoda, and he's just like, young Skywalker,
Mhm.
always looking to the future. Never your mind on where you are. Bonk on the head for you. I just love it. Like Yoda's still got it. He's still treating Luke just like that kid from Tatooine all those years ago. Like it's so funny because like here's old Luke. He's yellow, just he's this cranky old guy to Ray. But like to you, Luke, you're just still that young, and I gotta smack with my stick around a couple times. Um,
Yeah.
and it's just so good in the fire and just the
Yeah.
Yoda just points his little fingers like up, gonna just burn down the tree there. go. It just laughs. It's great.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that's so perfect about that moment is, again, it encapsulates everything that a Force Ghost moment should be, right?
Hmm.
It's this character. It was this beautiful surprise. You see, there's only a shot. You just see the ear coming up.
Yeah.
Um, you know that Luke has forgotten himself in the way he had met himself enough in Empire Strikes Back.
Mhm.
In that moment, and Yoda brings him to himself. Then, you know, brings him to the present moment. You know, always your mind on the future, never where it belongs in the present moment. And then Luke has forgotten himself, and he brings him back to
Right.
that. Um, and then the actual lines, like one of my favorite. That's my favorite. One of my favorite moments in all Star Wars. But one of my favorite lines, right?
Hmm.
Luke is grumpy. He's failed,
Right.
and he thinks his failure defines him.
Hmm.
And so, what does the Force do? The Force sends Yoda, who spent 20 years on Dagobah, reflecting on a truly great failure, the greatest failure in the history of the Jedi Order.
Even
Bar none.
retroactively, you can say more failures with all the High Republic stuff he's been doing lately.
Sure, but still, like the single greatest failure in the history
Right.
of the Jedi Order, which Luke mentioned before, at the height of their powers,
Hmm.
Yoda let Darth Sidious rise from the Empire and wipe them out. And last week we talked about who's responsible for that or whatever. But it's still a great failure, and Yoda is now able to say, okay, but what did that failure open up? What did it allow? What could it allow? It could allow someone like Rey to take on the legacy of the Order, and Luke, you're too afraid to take part in helping Rey do that. Go do that. you know,
Yeah.
Pass on the lessons of failure because they are the
Mhm.
greatest teachers, and it's such a great life lesson to say that failure doesn't define you; it can teach you to it can teach you even teach you that you're letting that failure define you too much.
Mhm.
That's one of the things that it can teach you is it can provoke that self-reflection, and then it can also say, I mean, we've gone on this line before. I can keep going. I will.
Greatest
Yeah,
teacher of failures.
that being stuck in fear, being stuck in failure, being stuck in you know, that's the thing about Luke wanting the Jedi to end. It's the same, it's the same impulse as Yoda wanting the Jedi to, or Yoda going along with the Jedi being the generals for the Republic's clone army, right? It's the same thing of this thing happening in the with the Jedi Order, this institutionalization, whether it's good or it's bad, that's what defines the Jedi. And yeah, I mean, Luke is right in saying that if the light dies, if the Jedi die, the light doesn't die. That's vanity. But he actually has to make good on what he's saying and saying, and if the Jedi lives, well, they can still preserve the light and be faithful to it. And so, uh, don't let that failure define you. So yeah, again, it just everything, and then Ian burns the books and burns the not the books, makes Luke think he's burnt the books, right? So that he'll get knocked out and brought back to himself in the moment. And yeah, it's everything that a Force Ghost moment should be, right?
Yeah. That's the best one. My personal favorite though,
Mhm.
is the Qui-Gon one from Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Such a
Uh,
sweet little moment, eh?
it's a little moment, but I really love Qui-Gon Jinn. He's probably my favorite prequel character. And you just, I don't know, it's like you're seeing him, it's like it's like a security blanket. You know it's gonna be okay. Qui-Gon's here to help you out. Also, I'm sure people were happy because I know a lot of people felt
Yeah,
disappointed in '05 when Qui-Gon didn't show up in Revenge of the Sith.
right.
It's
It's a really
just
good scene.
I don't even think they got him back for it. It's just like
No,
I don't even think they even were able to film it. Um, but I feel like finally, he's Qui Gon. He appears before Obi Wan now, kind of like Yoda does. It's like Obi Wan's had an entire season to kind of get his groove back after being sad and depressed in episode 1. Um, so there's that, and it's just like, oh, that's the reward for Obi-Wan's journey, and it's kind of like things are gonna be fine. It's gonna be okay.
Yeah.
It's gonna work out in the end.
Mhm.
So that's kind of my personal favorite, and also just because I'm a big Qui-Gon guy,
Yeah.
so I really love that moment.
I mean, the nice one about that one is,
Mm.
it confirms the arc, right? I mean, that's the
Right.
thing is, Qui Gon was able to see that Anakin may be the hope, and on Tatooine, he's like, "I'm there." Oh wow, this kid with the midi chlorian,
Mhm.
but also his generosity and his kindness, and it confirms. Okay, well, and so we know what happens. We know how that doesn't really work out. I mean, it does in the end, as we talked about with Anakin, but he becomes Darth Vader. By the way, uh, Qui Gon showing up, confirming to Obi Wan, yes, the New Hope is Luke and Leia. Uh, Continue to don't do what Luke did do, is not training Ray, but actually watch over this kid and preserve him and say, like we see in Twin Sons,
And
preserve him.
don't worry about Uncle Owen and Aunt Beru screwing up. They'll
Yeah,
be fine. They'll
yeah.
raise Luke right,
Mhm.
like your guns are.
So yeah.
Yeah, that's another one of my favorite moments.
Hmm.
Um, and also that kind of gets there's another little conversation between Qui Gon and Obi Wan and Master and Apprentice, the novel.
Yeah.
I haven't read that in a while, so
From a certain point of view.
from a certain point of view, so
Yeah.
it's been a while since that one. So
Mhm.
um,
Well,
I
that I mean, that was very much that's kind of a paper to screen pipeline because it's a similar kind of thing. Also, Legends to screen with John Jackson Miller's Kenobi, right?
that's true. A little bit
These
of that.
ideas coming through, and the thing, I mean, we get the most about Force Ghosts in from a certain point of view, just the experience of Qui Gon becoming himself again for Obi-Wan. Yeah.
Yeah, and Obi-Wan becoming a Force Ghost, like he sees he kind of it is kind of being outside of time. It's a little like the world between worlds in that sense, where it's like world between worlds is not technically time travel. It's just kind of it's
Mhm.
outside of time and space where you can kind of see a little bit of all and yet
Mhm.
come back in the moment proper. Apparently,
We're
it's also
getting there
very
in a minute.
it's a little bit painful.
Yeah.
Um, see, there's some good new original trilogy moments. Um, uh, you know, uh, and I guess, well, here's the thing about Anakin. The Anakin and Ahsoka one. So I guess we can talk about that one.
Mhm.
It's weird because like one's technically a Force ghost
Mhm.
because it's the very end,
At
and
the
then
end.
the world between worlds thing is, I guess, Force ghost adjacent. I mean, it's kind of all interconnected. It's probably Anakin's still, but it's not. He's not a ghost because they're in weird spacey time land, forcey void. But that's another one I like. I mean, it's great to see Hayden Christensen back in the Anakin get up and teaching Ahsoka a life lesson again.
Mhm.
It's also cool just to see Anakin in the armor. That was
Yeah.
awesome. That's probably like the third
Yeah.
favorite. If that's it's like if that tech counts as the Force Ghost moment, it's kind of like the Elthar thing. It's a little
Yeah.
hard to
Well,
say.
here's the thing about that though is
Mhm,
it Anakin in that moment is doing what
mhm.
Force Ghosts need to do, right? In a
Yeah.
story, doing for Ahsoka what Yoda did for Luke in the Last Jedi is
Mhm,
having her confront herself and confront her guilt of the past or fear of
mhm,
in the past, so that she can move forward, right? And using
mhm,
the past. Now he looks different. He's not in the shimmering blue or whatever.
mhm,
I do think and this is going to nerd out a little bit here. I do think there is something about the world between worlds that is the nether regions of the force, right? I mean, that's
yeah.
kind of my theory about the world between worlds is it is the unifying force, the cosmic force. Uh,
Personified.
yeah, like it kind of made sort of tangible. You can literally walk on it if you need to, and if you need to, that's just it. Is if the story, if the
Mhm,
character journey, if what the character is doing,
mhm.
if it is serving the light, then the light will make a way for it to be possible. That is what the world between worlds is. That is what Force ghosts are. And if that's what will enable a character to better serve the light, then that's what the Force will do. That's just the thing. It's not the
Mhm.
Force is this sort of divine thing that has this intelligence, this mind to say this is what this character needs. It ain't just lifting rocks. Like I said with Omega, it's a wisdom. Like I've said with Ray in the Last Jedi, it's a wisdom. With Sabine, it's a taps into character and motivations. And the dark side is this shadow version of that. But yeah, so Anakin coming and taking Ahsoka through her past is very much a confrontation with herself and the Force, causing her to, and we can, there's more we could talk about in terms of Anakin's own story there, but uh, yeah, it was. I think I mean, long story short, I think it counts for me because of what that does in the story, and that's what's important. So
Fair enough. I'm not going to argue with that. That's another thing I think important about Force Ghost is that you don't really want Force Ghost to solve the problem.
they can't
They can't.
really,
Like,
and they won't.
all like I would give it a pass if it's one of those weird situations and it's one of those things where you kind of have to execute it just properly enough where it's like the heroes already solved the problem and it's sort of like the Force Ghosts are kind of just given one last push.
Maybe, yeah,
Like they don't like you don't have to necessarily deliver the killing blow, but it's like yep, you already did pretty much.
yeah,
It's just kind of it's like it's sort of like if you're to video game it for a second, you technically beat the boss, but the boss kind of dies in the cutscene. It's one of those situations where like you did the work. Now it's just
yeah,
kind of the epic. Here come the ghosts to kind of
sure.
clean up the house. But yeah, that's another thing that you don't ever want the Force Ghost to just swoop in and solve the problem.
Well, I mean, that's the characters might want that,
Yeah,
but
they want.
then that's the thing they need to overcome is because the Force Ghosts won't, because that's just not that's the
Right.
thing. They're part of it. It's beyond themselves. They're not the hero anymore, and they
Right.
don't need to be, and that's why they're rewarded, if I can use that term, with continuing to be able to contribute, is because they're not the hero of the story anymore.
Right. Exactly. And
But at least they accept that situation, right? That they've died, and that it's someone, and it's for the next generation too. I mean, that's the thing with Ahsoka, with Yoda. It's yeah, our time is done. We are what they rise above, or what they are. We are what they grow beyond, right?
yeah, we
But the whole point of Force Ghost is then to say, yeah, someone who's stuck in, I got to be the hero. I gotta, or stuck in the past is holding me back.
mhm.
They are a figure from the past saying, no, go forward. And yeah, maybe say learn the lessons of the past and gain the wisdom. Yeah, strength, mastery, yes, but failure too.
But
Yes,
I
everything
want,
Last Jedi. So
but I do wonder. Like you never have a Force Ghost. Like here's another interesting about Force Ghosts, and this is where I think Anakin could be interesting moving forward. Is a lot of the time the Force Ghost also they can't solve the problem because most of the time they have everything kind of figured out. You know, Yoda got more or less kind of his reach to Zen in life. Kenobi Zen, Luke Zen. Um, Anakin's interesting because, like, well, how do you reach Zen with 25 years of
yeah,
space fascism, terror, death, and tyranny? And it's sort of like, I guess it'd be interesting is like if Anakin's the only Force ghost who has a bit of a character arc in terms of like still finding atonement for what he
yeah,
did, and like maybe not completely reaching Zen as a Force ghost. I remember if I'm sure you talked to Dominic about like Anakin's like, oh, I guess I'm not okay with Ahsoka in the same way I was with Luke, and if
mm,
I ever appear before Leia, it's like, oh, that's not going to go down well. She's probably mad. In fact, we know she is. She never truly forgave. So
mm,
I guess it'd be interesting if Anakin kind of maybe broke the mold a little bit in terms of like a Force ghost who hasn't got it all figured out per se. In the same way, kind of the other masters more or less do.
I mean, that's what we see in Shadow of the Sith, right? With
Right.
Christopher, and that was our last example of Anakin.
Hmm.
He hasn't. He's in this purgatory, in this half baked sort of what's, he's trying to warn Luke about something, tell Luke about something, but he's only partly able to do that. That's the difference with Ahsoka. He is in control, right? I
Right.
do think that. I mean, he shows up as Vader in order to confront Ahsoka with her own fears and a sense of failure. There's that theme
And
again.
she appears in the Force Ghost on Peridia, and Peridia is probably very special for Force
Yes,
Ghosts.
yeah, who knows, right? But yeah, in Shadow of the Sith, yeah, he's more like a ghost, right? He's
Hmm.
more of a ghastly sort of um incomplete, right?
Right.
That's the thing. All these other force ghosts, that's what you're getting at, is that they're complete and their life is complete.
Hmm.
And in Shadow of the Sith, yeah, he's not complete.
Got a lot of guilt.
Yeah.
Oh.
So
So yeah, I mean that would be interesting. And I'm sure we'll hopefully see more Hayden and Ahsoka, so maybe they can delve into that
and,
more.
and everything else too.
That too.
Yeah.
Let me check. Let me check my notes here. Um, yeah, we kind of went through
Yeah.
this right quicker than I'm a little shocked by.
That's okay.
Um, I guess any last thoughts on Force Ghosts?
Well, I do want to get a bit of these comments here.
Oh sure, okay, we'll read some
Because
comments.
going back here, so Comic Academy, great conversation with this, by the way, folks. Yeah, saying Han was a better choice in this situation. This is a good way of putting it. This is why I highlighted this.
Hmm.
It's a good way of putting it. Han was a better choice, but Anakin would have made sense. Um, Again, in part because Kylo does have a connection to Anakin, to Vader. It's that he has to be confronted by it. So it would have provoked that conversation. It would have made sense, but yeah, like Han is better. I don't know what do you think of the way this is worded? This is put
I don't know if it would have made sense, quite frankly, because
like
I kind of honestly don't think Anakin really is helpful in the situation with Kylo Ren because I don't think Kylo Ren would listen or care.
right,
Um,
yeah.
I,
He
I,
doesn't have the personal connection.
yeah, I don't think he does. And whatever, and again, this is kind of going off more novelization stuff,
Yeah,
which again, who knows? But if we were to take parts of the novelization as canon, then Snoke was like, "Hey, Anakin Skywalker, the guy with the wimp, he wimped
yeah,
out on us, wimped out on the dark side. So if he shows up, you just ignore him." And also, Kylo's big issues do seem to come more from his parents than anything else. So if he got to work out his issues, he's got to work it out with them. He doesn't have to work it out with Anakin or anything. What does Anakin gonna say? Be nice to your parents. Like, he's got to work it out with them. And I don't think he would care what Anakin Skywalker would have to say because I don't think he cares. It's like,
yeah,
and I've always said this: Anakin Skywalker, Ben Solo, the person he wants to be like is not Anakin Skywalker. I think he wants to be like. I think he wants to be like his dad. I think her hero is deep down Han Solo.
hmm
I think that's who he really
yeah.
channels more.
I mean, but he's got the mask, and it makes me wonder after Ahsoka if Rise of Skywalker came out after Ahsoka
Mhm.
or instead of Ahsoka, would it make more sense for Anakin to come back the way he comes back to Ahsoka, um, in a way, or at least the part where he is Vader, or he is Vader, but he puts on the mask, he puts on the dark side eyes, and says, it would have worked as a confrontation with
I feel like Duel of the
Kylo's
Fates does
fear.
that, where it's
Yeah,
Kylo and Vader duel, but I don't remember what the lesson was, if there even was one.
you know,
So
yeah. So that's what I'm getting. It would have been a confrontation with Kylo's idea of what strength is. What the goal is. So again, like I think you're right, and that the bigger issue, yeah, is with his parents. Um, but yeah, I think he worships Vader. He looks he has this he puts Vader on literally on a pedestal, the mask on a pedestal, and says, I'm gonna imitate you by putting on this mask.
I guess the question is, if Anakin said, "Don't do that," would Kylo listen, or would Kylo go like, I don't care, middle finger, Anakin
Maybe,
Skywalker?
maybe, even if he does confront him as Vader first. Yeah, I'm. It's possible. I don't know.
That's the thing about Kylo. He's still a little too vague for me to really take certain aspects of him. Like, I don't know. Uh, Again, I do know that Duel of the Fates had a Vader Kylo duel in it, so there's that for you.
Yeah, I mean, again, if given the choice, yeah, I like the way this is worded. The better choice. I think it would have made sense. I think it would be okay. Um, yeah, Bull Run saying, yeah, Last Jedi agreeing. Theoda, there. Here's an interesting, on appears, you know, after, almost as an encouraging thing, or saying now go. That's another possibility to do both at the same time.
I mean, maybe I don't know. I'm weirdly one of the people who like doesn't see how Anakin really makes is just outside of just some fan service. Like I don't see the emotional core to it the same way I do between just Han and
Yeah,
obviously Leia.
I
Uh,
would guess, but
like it's one of those weird things where I feel like just the structure of the sequel trilogy, weirdly as it was written,
Mhm.
and maybe this is more episode 9 in
Yeah.
both versions really kind of don't have a place for Anakin. Like I feel like just on their structural emotional level, they almost like don't really have a place for him in the story.
Yeah, I
Um
mean, if they dealt more with the prophecy of the chosen one, or the idea of a chosen one and balance of the force, if they dealt, they have. I mean, Anakin does show up. His voice restore the balance rate, like I did. Yeah, it's true. It does deal more with the legacy of the original trilogy. I don't
I
know. I
mean,
mean, if anything, I mean, again, Yoda was this is to continue the way it was formulated. Yoda was the better choice, but because it's dealing with the failure of the Jedi.
and
But
Master
also,
Yoda is his master.
yeah, that's true too. But if Anakin showed up on Octo, also, it would be an interesting parallel, right? With Yoda and Ben on the log and Return of the Jedi. It would be an interesting thing of them both saying, um, maybe that's where the confrontation with, you know, yeah, I mean, we get it with Rey saying that Anakin came back and saved the day, but maybe if Anakin himself came back and said, yeah, I came back, you brought me back, and son of Padme, you brought me back.
I like the idea of Anakin appearing before Rey on Octo and Rise of Skywalker instead of Luke. That would have been fun.
Which, what,
Um,
like, what would he have said to her? I'm wondering. What do you think?
I don't know. Like maybe I just maybe kind of maybe he'd be the one to kind of give her peck her up and like don't run away. Although I guess that does fit better with Luke because Ray was kind of doing the same thing Luke was about to do. Well, what's interesting in Duel of the Fates, what I remember from vaguely that script is there were going to be like a couple Force visions. One was Vader and Kylo dueling it out.
Mm,
Again, I don't remember if there was even a lesson there or not. And then there was the later one on Mortis where Han and Kylo, although that one was way more cynical and it's just like,
mm.
like Kylo just going more and more evil. I was like, I don't like that. Um, so I don't know. Maybe it's like they could have had two Force visions at different times.
Yeah,
I don't know. I mean, I mean that's more of a Rise of Skywalker, just the structure problem of like where are you gonna put it? Where
true.
do you put it? I don't know. And then I guess
Now I
and
want to
then
see Mortis in live action now.
well, I
Right.
mean, we're
Already got-
season 2 of Ahsoka probably. That's
True, right? I mean, everything with the mountain statue things. Yeah, that'll be interesting if Ezra goes to Mortis. This is a whole tangent.
I mean, Ahsoka going to Mortis. That's what I was.
Well, yeah, I mean, depends on when she gets back from that of the galaxy.
I mean, that's what I think. I think Peridia and Mortis are the same place. I think she's going there.
It's also possible. Also, Mortis is not necessarily a place at all. So, you um,
But yeah. I mean, again, it's one of those situations where it's like I feel like you have to restructure the whole movie,
yeah.
and I just don't know where I would put it in without kind of everything else falling apart. But yeah.
Here's an interesting comment. Joey, you have to poke your head up there.
Mhm.
Yeah, that Han showing up is still Leia.
Mhm.
It could work in a way. I mean, again, story wise, I think the intention we all think the intention was
The
for,
intention,
for it to be Leia, but then of course Carrie Fisher died. Right?
I think, at, at-
I'll poke it in. Go
I think the going to go back to my week of Star Wars, the artistic intention. I wouldn't be surprised if JJ was like, "No, Han can be Force Ghost. Everyone can be a Force Ghost." And obviously, the novelization's like it's a memory replaying in Kylo's
Yeah.
mind, and well, it's like, well, who cares? The point is, it's a beautiful moment, and I love it. One
The
of my
point
favorites.
again is the function it
Of
serves for Kyle for Ben. Right.
Right.
You know,
And he needs to hear. Well, it probably would have been better to hear from his mom, but he needs to hear. Well, I mean, that's one of the weird things. Is like, I guess who's the? I mean, I don't. We can talk about this later when we ever do our Kylo Ren discussions. Like, who at that moment did he need to hear from more? Did he need to hear from Leia, or did he need to hear from Han?
Mhm.
And in some ways, I think they try to do both. With
Yeah.
obviously Leia called out to Ben Solo before Ray stabs him, and then
Yeah.
Han's like the one to kind of give him like, "Hey, it's okay, kid. I love you. Go do your thing."
Yeah.
But
Um,
but that's
either way, it works well. It's
right. Ooh, I'm
gotta be
lagging.
definitely either way. Jazz hands. Either way, it works well. It's definitely one of the best moments of that film.
Mm.
So fun times.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we got one more from
you can open up for it. Yeah, another possibility. The connection. I mean, all those things is that it's both of them showing up again. It's Kylo Ben working out.
Mhm.
I mean, part of the reason he falls to the dark side in the first place is because of his parents, right? I mean, why does anyone, I mean, parenting will screw a kid up. That's just inevitable.
Yeah,
That's
that.
life works. Part of the thing with life. So,
Yeah, I
and
could
then
go
you
on a whole thing about how everyone wants Han and Leia to be like the perfect parents. Like, I don't want them to be like horrible parents, but like give them some flaws. Like, I don't think they're responsible, but something happened along the way in the development.
wait, why does he hate the Falcon so much? Right?
Right.
It's a symbol of his dad being off on whatever
Hmm.
venture. Um, yeah, I mean, especially in Star Wars, parents screwing their kids up. I mean, you know that's a theme.
Vader
or
is
being
the
off.
ultimate parent. Dude,
Yeah.
cut off his kid's arm. Teach that
So
boy.
and then them overcoming that challenge,
Right.
finding serving the light, and
Hmm.
then becoming Force ghosts is to bring it all back together. So fun times. Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah, Force Ghost.
Yeah,
Bit of a shorter episode this week, weirdly.
that's it. Shorter by about 10 minutes. So there we go.
Sure. There we go.
Yeah.
That's true.
But yeah, I think it's a good time to wrap it up. Yeah, thanks everyone for joining us. Thanks for the great conversation in the comments. Definitely keep the comments coming.
Hmm.
Let us know what your favorite Force Ghost moment is, what you think Force Ghosts are, what you think of everything else we talked about in terms of uh, you know, the future of Star Wars comics in the main run, in issue number coming up to issue number 50. If you're reading it, let us know. Everything about High Republic Adventures and the Bad Batch and etc. 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 Yeah, I mean, being good chat, good combo, great discussion, etc. Also, yeah, let us know. Please do. Sorry, let us know. I just said that. Let us words, Matthew. It's been 2 hours. uh, like if you haven't done so already, like this video and give us a share and a subscription. We definitely help the channel. Obviously, of course, super chats and YouTube memberships definitely help us. Yeah, let's get the plugs yet again. Joel, again, thanks for a great conversation. Where can they find you on the internet?
You can find me at JID2021 on Twitter, JID2021 on Twitter. Of course, you can follow me at IonCan. Hey, I actually didn't get that. At EYEONCANONPOD, IonCan Pod. So follow me there where I always post fun stuff and whatnots.
Yes. You can follow me on Instagram and threads at MNEUG1138, Twitter at NEUG45, and of course also Twitter, Instagram, and threads at Ion Cannon Pod, EYEONCANONPOD, Spotify, and Apple Podcast. One plug I forgot to mention at the top, right here on the Star Wars Underworld YouTube channel. Maybe this is kind of an accidental April Fool's gag, if you will. Toronto Comic Con, I got to do a Taylor Swift panel, and the first got to record the first 15 minutes of it got recorded, and so that is up with Ash and Jess. Ash, of course, has been on Iron Cannon before, and she's got a great Doctor Who podcast coming out soon. And so check that out. Yeah, check out the Taylor Swift on Star Wars Underworld. Because why the heck not? I'm wearing my Jedi Temple, Jedi Archives T-shirt. Sure.
Hilarious, love it.
Here we go. So there's an accidental, but it was a serious conversation. We get into some serious stuff, but why the heck not? If you're a fan of Her Majesty, check that out. But yeah, also, yeah, every Monday night here and every Wednesday night, Tractor Beam coming up this Wednesday at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific. They'll be talking about comics, probably talking a bit more about the future of Star Wars comics, getting Chris's thoughts on that. Of course, check out the flagship Thursday, 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific. They're definitely talking about the Bad Batch for sure. And for stuff from Beyond the Galaxy and the race side, Hannah doing everything every day, all day, every day. And of course, the Discord server. Check the link in the description below for a minty fresh link. Get in there, say hi, tag Joel, ask Ben when his birthday is, all that fun stuff. All right, next week we got something fun, special, something I wanted to do for a little bit. We glup all the shadows.
Finally,
gulp them all. Canon, screen canon, paper canon. I'm sure there's glup shadows in paper canon somewhere. Probably are, but mostly a screen thing, I guess. And hopefully have a special guest coming in on. So that'll be exciting. But until then, Joel, why not end it a little bit early? It's been fun. Let's blow this thing and head home.